Most people spend years slowly building their credit score the hard way, paying bills on time, waiting for old accounts to age, hoping things eventually improve. And that works, eventually. But there is a specific strategy that most financial influencers either do not know about or simply refuse to talk about because it cuts against the narrative that credit building has to take a long time. Today, I am going to show you exactly what that strategy is, how it works, and why banks would genuinely prefer you never figure this out. Stay with me because the part most people get completely wrong is coming up in just a minute. And if you make that same mistake, this entire strategy backfires on you. Before I get into the actual mechanic, I want you to think about something. When was the last time you genuinely understood what your credit score is actually measuring? Not just the general idea like pay your bills and do not max out your cards. I mean the specific mathematical logic underneath it. Because here is the thing most people miss. Your credit score is not primarily a measure of your financial responsibility. It is a measure of how predictable you are to lenders. That distinction sounds small, but it changes everything about how you approach this. A lender does not care if you're a good person. They care if they can model your behavior accurately. And the credit scoring algorithms, particularly FICO, are built around that principle. So when I say there's a loophole, what I really mean is there's a place in that algorithm where the logic produces a result that benefits you far more than the system was probably designed to intend. And once you understand it, you can use it deliberately. Let me give you the foundation first. Your FICO score is built on 5 main factors. Payment history is the biggest one, sitting at about 35% of your total score. Then there's credit utilization, which is how much of your available credit you are currently using, and that accounts for roughly 30%. After that comes the length of your credit history at 15%, the mix of credit types you have at 10%, and finally, new credit inquiries at 10%. Every piece of advice you've ever heard about credit is essentially targeting one of these 5 buckets. Pay on time, keep balances low, do not close old accounts, have a mix of installment and revolving credit, do not apply for too many cards at once. You've heard all of that. But most people treat these 5 factors as equally slow to move. They are not, and that's where this gets interesting. Utilization is the fastest moving factor in the entire scoring model. Unlike payment history, which gets built up over years of consistent behavior, utilization can change dramatically from one billing cycle to the next. We're talking weeks, not years. That single fact is the foundation of everything I'm about to tell you, and the specific loophole sits inside a misunderstanding about when and how utilization actually gets calculated and reported. Here's what most people think happens. They think the credit bureaus are watching your balance in real time, like some kind of live meter that tracks exactly how much you owe at any given second. That's not how it works. What actually happens is that your credit card issuer reports your balance to the bureaus once per month. And in most cases, they report the balance that appears on your statement closing date. Not the date your bill is due, not the day you actually pay. The statement closing date. That specific moment in time is when your issuer takes a snapshot of your balance and sends it to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. That number becomes your reported balance, and that reported balance is what gets used to calculate your utilization ratio, which is then factored into your score. Now here is where the loophole lives. If you pay your balance down before the statement closing date, even if you've been carrying a high balance throughout the rest of the month, the bureaus never see the high balance. They only see what's there at the moment of the snapshot. This means you can use your credit card extensively throughout the month, and as long as you bring the balance down before the statement closes, your reported utilization will be low, or even zero. A low reported utilization translates directly into a higher score. And here's the part most people completely reverse. You do not need to pay before your payment due date to get this benefit. You need to pay before your statement closing date, which is typically anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks earlier than the due date. Most people wait until the due date to pay because that's when the bill is actually due. But by then, the snapshot has already been taken. The bureaus already have the number. Paying on your due date means you're paying to avoid a late fee and interest charges, which is important, but it does nothing to lower your reported utilization for that month. Let me say that again, because this is the part most people get wrong. Paying on your due date is not the same as paying before your statement closes. If your statement closes on the 8th of the month and your payment is due on the 3rd of the following month and you pay on the 2nd of the following month, congrats, you avoided a late fee. But the bureaus already saw your full balance on the 8th. That's what got reported. That's what affected your score. If instead you had paid before the 8th, even partially, even just enough to get your balance under 10% of your limit, your score would have reflected that lower utilization instead. This is not a hack in the sketchy sense of the word. It's just using the system as it actually works, rather than how most people assume it works. The rules have always been this way. The information has always been available. But because most financial content is built around oversimplified advice, the nuance gets lost. Pay on time, keep balances low. Great advice, but knowing when the utilization gets measured is what actually lets you control it. Now, let me talk about how to actually implement this strategically. The first thing you need to do is find out your statement closing date for each of your credit cards. This is not the same as your due date. Your statement or billing cycle closing date is usually listed in your online account under billing details, or you can find it on your most recent statement. Write it down. Once you know that date, you set a reminder to pay down your balance a few days before it. You don't have to pay the full balance necessarily, though doing so obviously eliminates interest entirely. The goal from a scoring perspective is to have your reported balance represent less than 10% of your credit limit on each card. Under 30% is better than over 30%, but under 10% is where the real scoring lift tends to happen. Here's something else worth knowing. If you have multiple credit cards, the utilization calculation works both at the individual card level and in aggregate across all your revolving accounts. So a card that's maxed out hurts you, even if your overall utilization across all cards combined looks okay. This means you want to focus on making sure no individual card is sitting at a high utilization when its statement closes, not just your overall portfolio. Now, there's a version of this strategy that goes one step further, and this is where things get particularly interesting for people who want to accelerate their credit improvement. It involves something called piggybacking, but not in the suspicious, predatory sense you might have heard about. This is legitimate authorized user status. If someone who already has strong credit, low utilization, a long account history, adds you as an authorized user on one of their credit cards, their account history on that card gets factored into your credit profile. You don't even need to use the card. You don't necessarily need to have the physical card in your possession. The benefit comes simply from having that account appear on your report. And because the account they're adding you to likely has a high credit limit, a low balance, and a long history, your own average account age goes up, your available credit goes up, and your utilization goes down, all at once. Combined with what we just discussed about statement timing, this can produce score improvements that look almost impossibly fast to people who have only ever done things the slow way. But let me be very direct about something here. None of this replaces the fundamentals. If you're missing payments, if you have collections on your report, if you have recent derogatory marks, these strategies are going to bump into a ceiling. The loophole is most powerful when your foundation is already solid. Think of it as an amplifier. It makes your good behavior show up faster and more accurately in your score. It does not cover up bad behavior. If you're dealing with negative items on your report, that's a different conversation involving dispute processes, goodwill letters, and in some cases, patience. Let me also talk about the psychology of why banks prefer you not think about this too carefully. When you carry a balance month to month, you pay interest. The entire business model of revolving credit is built around the assumption that most people will not pay their full balance every month. Banks make an enormous amount of money from finance charges. If everyone paid before their statement closed every month and carried zero balance, the credit industry's revenue model would look very different. Beyond that, when your credit score is lower than it should be because of misunderstood utilization mechanics, you become less attractive to competing lenders. You stay with the products you already have. You pay higher rates. You have less negotiating power. A better informed consumer with a higher score shops around, transfers balances, negotiates rates, and costs the institution more in competitive positioning. None of that is conspiratorial. It's just the natural incentive structure at work. They're not secretly plotting against you. They're simply not going out of their way to explain the parts of the system that benefit you at their expense. There's another piece to this that I want to bring up because it connects to a mistake I see constantly. People who are aggressively trying to improve their credit will sometimes close old credit card accounts thinking it cleans up their profile. This is almost always the wrong move. When you close an account, you lose that available credit limit. Your utilization goes up across your remaining accounts, and depending on how old the account is, you may also be shortening your average credit age. Both of those things hurt your score. The only real reason to close a credit card account is if it has an annual fee you can't justify, and there's no way to downgrade to a no-fee version of the same card. Otherwise, even a card you never